Hey everybody, Ash here with Gents, and it's a hype train review. Yes, it is Mont Blanc Explorer. This one has been getting hyped up on the fragrance groups, on forums, just in general. People have been talking about this one. People want to know what's up with this. Is this one worth getting? Is it any good? Should you be buying this at retail? Should you go to your local Macy's right now and pick this up? Or if you don't have a Macy's near you, like me, order it online. The reason that this is getting so much hype is because it's getting compared to Creed Aventus. And I actually just did another fragrance that is compared to Creed Aventus, Mercedes-Benz Select. That was my most recent review before this one. In case you didn't watch that review, I mean, check it out, throw me a like on there. But yeah, that one, Mercedes-Benz Select, is compared to Creed Aventus, and there are some similarities there for sure. That one never really got too much hype in the community though. This one has. So let's go ahead and jump into this. We'll check out the presentation really quickly on Mont Blanc Explorer. Then I'll let you know what I think about the fragrance, how it performs, if it smells similar to Aventus, if it's worth buying. So here we go. It's time to either get on the hype train or derail it for Mont Blanc Explorer. Alright guys, let's check out this presentation for Mont Blanc Explorer. Here we've got the box, name of the house and fragrance, size and concentration down here at the bottom. Nothing doing on the top or the sides. And the back of the box, pretty much the same as the front of the box. On the bottom you've got your ingredient information and your batch code down here at the bottom. And here we have the bottle. You've got the Mont Blanc logo here, kind of extends out from the bottle, kind of like a little button. Has this leather wrap that goes around the bottle. That's probably going to remind you of like the Prada L'Homme or Prada L'Homme Intense bottles. You can see here around the top it says Mont Blanc Explorer. And then again you have the Mont Blanc logo on the top of the cap. The cap does click into place. You can easily pick it up by the cap. It's very snug. And then again, Mont Blanc logo on the top of the atomizer. Atomizer here is very nice. It's high quality. On the bottom, just to drive that point home, another Mont Blanc logo. And then your size and concentration and badge code are actually etched into the glass along the rim of the bottom of the bottle. Alright guys, that is the presentation for Mont Blanc Explorer. This one looks very nice in my opinion. Now what's interesting about this fragrance is I actually covered this on This Week in Fragrance, and just looking over the notes list at the time, it didn't give me any inkling that it was going to be a Creed Aventus clone or inspired by fragrance or whatever you want to call it. And yet when people started to smell this, that's all anybody was talking about. I saw a bunch of threads about this fragrance. Some people were saying that it's even as good as their 2016 Aventus batches, which is again an issue with Aventus, that people are saying, oh, it's as good as it was in 2016, which going by that logic would mean that Mont Blanc Explorer is better than Creed Aventus at this point, because most people will agree that batches of Aventus in 2018 are not as good as batches from 2016, at least in general. I'm sure that you could pick out the worst batch from 2016 and the best from 2018, and the 2018 would be better, but that's another video for another time. So with all this hype around Mont Blanc Explorer about this potentially being even better than Aventus, I was interested to check it out. And of course, being a fragrance reviewer, I bought it at full retail from Macy's like a moron, so that I could do this video for you guys and let you know whether you should do the same. Now with Mont Blanc Explorer, when you very first spray this on, it does not smell like Aventus. And I'm talking about the very initial blast, okay? I'm not talking about the entire opening, just the very initial part of the opening. It doesn't smell like Aventus initially. Explorer is missing apple, blackcurrant, and pineapple that Aventus has. Just like Mercedes-Benz Select that I talked about in my previous video, Explorer does have bergamot. And the bergamot that's used in Explorer is going to remind you a little bit of the bergamot that's used in Aventus. But that tang that you get from blackcurrant or that juice that you get from pineapple, those are missing in Explorer. And as well, there is no birch or smoke in Explorer. So off the top, Explorer does not have the same opening as Aventus. It doesn't have that smoky birch, it doesn't have that juicy pineapple, it's not the same. Again, the bergamot that's used here is similar to the bergamot in Aventus, but it's missing a lot of things that Aventus has. Now here's the deal though, about 5 minutes in, Explorer does start to smell similar to Aventus. Despite having those missing notes, it's close enough that when you smell Explorer after about 5 minutes, you're gonna go, oh yeah, that does remind me of Aventus. Now it's not close enough that I would call it an Aventus clone, but could you say that it's inspired by Aventus at this point in the fragrance's life? Yeah, you could, and you probably should. But Explorer does have a definite designer feel to it that Aventus does not. And why does Explorer have that Aventus feel? Because of the aroma chemicals that are being used in it. Explorer has an overload of Ambroxan and Akigalawood. Ambroxan is used in tons of men's fragrances. Akigalawood is a captive molecule that only Givaudan can use. The Ambroxan overload here gives the fragrance a warm, semi-sweet, pleasant feel. After the first 5 minutes, when it doesn't smell like Aventus, to when it starts to transition into an Aventus-inspired fragrance or riff on the Aventus DNA, up until about 45 minutes in, that's when Explorer smells most like Aventus. So you have about a 35 to 40 minute window where this is trying to smell similar to this. To an extent, it's like you took Aventus, you got rid of the birch, you got rid of the pineapple, you got rid of the black currant, and you replaced those notes with more Ambroxan and Akigalawood. Akigalawood has a woody type scent with kind of a peppery undertone. You do pick up a good amount of the pepper from the Akigalawood, and that pepper may trick some people into thinking that it's got kind of a smoky feel. Again, there's no birch or birch tar in Explorer, so I don't really pick up any smoke at all, just that kind of peppery Akigalawood. And there's a good amount of that in here. Explorer does come off noticeably synthetic. I'm not saying that in a negative way. A lot of times people say synthetic and they use that as kind of a diss or a burn on the fragrance that they're talking about. In this circumstance, I mean synthetic and just, it's using a lot of synthetic molecules and it's obvious. And the reason it's so obvious that this has so many synthetic notes in it is because once that fruity bergamot that might remind you of a fruitier batch of Aventus in the opening dies out, it becomes just an absolute woody Ambroxan bomb. Not necessarily in terms of performance or projection, but in terms of what you pick up when you smell it. There's a small touch of vetiver in Explorer that comes out as it dries down and you pick up those woody notes more prominently, but the vetiver here is never really all that strong. It's definitely dwarfed by the Akigalawood and the Ambroxan. Really, in the dry down, the vetiver just gives a slight dry, semi-musty feel that's in the background of the fragrance. I know that Explorer has been compared to Aventus as a clone to Aventus, as being very similar to Aventus. And like I said earlier, for about 30 minutes there, you could say that it's close enough to be considered in the extended family of Aventus. But once it dries down and in the initial opening, it's not really close to Aventus at all. At least to my nose, it's not. Explorer has similarities to Aventus as it goes from the opening into the mid, but past that, once the bergamot starts to dry down, there's not really much similar here. In the dry down, Explorer is missing a ton of notes from Creed Aventus. There's no vanilla, there's no musk, there's no birch, there's no oak moss, there are no floral notes in Explorer. Aventus uses ambergris, Explorer uses Ambroxan. And yes, I know about the similarities between the two. But Explorer has your typical designer Ambroxan. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it gives off kind of a fuzzy, semi-sweet, warm fragrance feel. Ambergris is usually smoother, sometimes gives off a little bit of a salty feel. And when you spray these on side by side, there's an enormous difference. Now I know that I had a New Year's resolution not to wear Aventus this year, but I did spray Aventus on side by side with Explorer so I could compare them. And I think that means my resolution is still good because I didn't wear Aventus around people, I wore it for science. Literally just sitting there at my desk, sniffing back and forth like an idiot so I could compare these two. And this batch of Aventus is 18K01. It's a 2018 batch, and honestly it is noticeably worse than my 2016, 15, and 14 batches that I own. So I was essentially comparing the worst Aventus batch that I have up against Explorer, and Aventus was still much better. I also had my wife test both of these while I was wearing them and give me her thoughts on it. She did it blindly because she didn't know which one I had sprayed where. I just said, hey, one of these is Aventus, smell these and tell me which one. And she got it immediately, no hesitation whatsoever. This was in the very initial opening, like I said, the first 5 minutes or so, Explorer does not smell like Aventus. She could immediately tell. She said the first one's Aventus, the second one honestly doesn't smell good. Into the mid, she said that they smelled more similar, but she still preferred Aventus, so she was on the exact same page with me and my thoughts. And once they hit the full dry down, she said that they smell like two completely different fragrances and again picked Aventus over Explorer. And once more for reiteration, we were talking about 18K01, which is my worst Aventus batch. Now let's talk about the performance for Mont Blanc Explorer. For me, not very good. Longevity for me in the 4 to 5 hour range before you can basically not pick it up at all. It leans more toward 4 hours than it does 5. And the projection is actually good through what I would call the Aventus-ish phase of the fragrance's life. Throughout that phase, when the bergamot is still more noticeable, it projects well. Once that bergamot starts to die off though, the projection goes with it. To be fair though, Explorer does perform just a little bit worse than my 18K01 Aventus. This Aventus batch is pretty weak as far as projection and longevity goes off my skin. So while Explorer does not have great performance off my skin, if you compare it to a more modern batch of Aventus, it's pretty close. My older batches of Aventus perform much better. Now I think you already know where this is going, but do I think you should pick this up at retail price? No, don't do it. Wait for this to hit discounters. It probably won't take too long before it shows up there. And we all know how much Mont Blanc costs at discounters. $25 to $30 typically. Now if I had to guess, and again this is just an educated guess, Explorer will probably show up at discounters in the $40 range initially. That's just going off their previous releases like Mont Blanc Legend Night. After a little while at discounters, it's gonna drop from $40 and probably settle in around $30 to $35. At that price, you know, $30 to $40, it's worth a look for sure. At that price, a lot of guys are gonna get use out of it. It does take the Aventus DNA and give it kind of a twist. It's got less of the fruits, it doesn't have the black currant, it definitely amps up the Ambroxan and the Akigalawood heavily, so you have a warm, spicy, synthetic wood backbone. That's the most prominent part of the fragrance. So I mean, you are missing a lot that you do get with Aventus, but again, reiterating, in my opinion, it's not a clone of Aventus. It's not even really inspired by Aventus. It just rips off part of the DNA for 30 minutes or so, and then it's its own synthetic Ambroxan woody bomb. Now, despite all the stuff I've said that makes it sound like I'm crapping on Explorer really hard, it smells okay, it's pleasant. Is it amazing? No, it's not. Would I pay more than $30 for it to wear personally? No, I wouldn't. There are a lot of fragrances out there worse than Explorer, but this is not anything to get excited about in my opinion. So yeah, there we go guys, Mont Blanc Explorer. In my opinion, this is not the fragrance that's gonna change everything and give you Aventus at 1/10 the price once this hits discounters. Explorer is not a replacement for Aventus. I do not suggest you buy this for retail unless maybe you go into a Macy's and you spray that on and it just works awesome for you and it's amazing, and for whatever reason you get great performance where I don't. Maybe then take the plunge, but honestly, I think that all of you should wait until it hits discounters. All right guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys again next time with another fragrance review.